Civilization 7 is a game with the soundtrack. Look, you read the title, you know what this video is going to be. I'm not going to dwell too long in the intro. I spent the past couple years on YouTube trying to build up an identity around the Civilization series OST, from my meme videos to my fan-made soundtrack, which is really good, by the way. I just put out a new one, it's banger. So I figured, you know what, I kind of got to talk about the new soundtrack, right? There's been a lot of discourse about the game's OST so far, both on the positive and negative spectrums, and I've experienced it firsthand. So, hey, why not? Let's talk about the Civ 7 soundtrack. But first off, credit where credit's due. This ranking format is based really heavily off Boethius's Civ 6 soundtrack ranking videos. He certainly has some interesting takes, but his videos on the Civ soundtrack are awesome, and he's one of my favorite Civ YouTubers, so definitely check out his stuff if you somehow haven't already. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Michael Zarobin, who beat me to the punch with his Antiquity age ranking, which is very, very, very well produced. Honestly, I'd like to give a massive shout out to the channel as a whole. He makes Civilization 6 piano reductions for almost all the themes at this point, so definitely go drop a sub if you're interested in that, because he makes some good stuff. Alright, let's get into the details. I'll be formatting this in a tier list because, well, it's YouTube, y'all love your jingling keys, but it's also good at showing the relative quality of each track compared to the rest as well. I'll be splitting the ranking into the three eras: Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. I rank each era on some different criteria, so it'd be a bit unfair lumping them all together, but I'll show the combined list at the end. In this little graphic here, I'll show what Civ I'm talking about, alongside the composer and what the original track was based off. I got a few comments on my meme video about the names of each song. I just want to be clear that the official inspirations of the songs have never been revealed, so there might be a couple inaccuracies in the original song names because it's entirely fan researched. Like, a lot of them from the original meme video are already outdated, so whatever. I'm taking the names from the Civ wiki, so if you have a problem with them, take it up with them. Unlike most people complaining about Civ 7, I've actually played the game a fair amount, so for this ranking, I'm going to be considering the song both on its own and in the context of playing the game. There's a whole debate right now about the soundtrack, and it's the argument of wanting things to sound more historically accurate versus sounding better, for lack of a better term, more westernized. If you want to know my stance on that, well, hey, you're just going to have to watch the video, buddy. This is literally what it's all about. I had a couple more comments to make about my methodology, but believe it or not, I'm actually trying to write shorter intros, so let's just jump into the rankings. My criteria for liking Antiquity tracks is pretty simple. If I don't want to tear my hair out by the end of it, it's a good song. For context, there's no Civ-specific ambient tracks in the game, so if I'm playing a standard-sized Antiquity game, I'll be hearing at maximum the same 7 tracks on loop for 2 hours. Even though all the Antiquity tracks have inherently simple orchestration, a repetitive track is basically a doom sentence at this era, so the less repetitive it is, the more I like it. Axiom itself is a good example of how to make a simple-ish medley into a very, very strong Antiquity theme by introducing a lot of variation. It's got most of what I like compared to the rest of this era's ranking. It's not repetitive, it keeps a good progression throughout the whole time, and it uses some pretty unique instruments compared to what you're usually used to in songs like this. And I don't know, this part's a bit hard to describe, but I really like how the flute melody comes in during the middle of each beat of the measure. It gives it an offbeat, sort of off-kilter style, and that gives a lot of momentum to the piece. The instrumentation also is pretty complex at times. Like, I'd mistake this for a Civ 6 medieval track if I didn't have the context that this is from 7. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what it really is about it, but this is one of my favorites. I'm starting off with an immediate S tier. Moving on after Axiom, we get Carthage, which is the newest DLC in the game. As of making this video, Nepal and Bulgaria are not yet out, so they will not be included in this ranking. Cut here if this ages poorly and the video takes longer than I thought it would. And this is our obligatory Hurry and Hymn number 6. I believe. Hurry and Hymn number 6 is the oldest song fragment we have in the world and is typically used for Carthage and Phoenicia themes in Civ games. But the thing is, is no standard academic interpretation of how it sounds. It kind of has the vibes of it, but I'm not 100% that it is number 6 compared to just an original track. All that aside, though, this is just a pure militaristic theme. It goes super hard into the drums, super hard into the horns at the later part, which I like a lot, and it has a very good build-up throughout the entire track and a nice culmination at the end. The drum beat is very static throughout the whole time. I'd prefer if they'd switch it at some point. Like, I think a 2 and 4 beat around the middle would actually go really, really hard. A little bit of spoilers for later, but this is Rome's Ed Your Cousin. And I think the militarism is a bit cheesy, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it gets me hyped. So I am putting this one at a solid A tier. With the Civilization soundtracks, you could always count on Egypt being the most baseline quality-wise. You could say mid, but that sort of has a negative connotation. I don't know, I think it's just a very solid baseline. They always rank around B or C tier. And this one very much continues that legacy. It doesn't do anything super offensive, but it also does not blow me away. The speed up at the end is a nice way to cap it off, though. I don't know, it's an original track, and it just encapsulates Egypt very well, so I don't have much else to say on it, aside from, yeah, it sounds good. So I will be ranking this at B tier. Ooh, Greece's theme. Yeah, I really don't know what it is about this one, but it just does not hit for me the same like the others do. I don't know if it's out of tune purposely, or I don't know if it's just really dissonant, but it's got a very, very repetitive sort of droning feel to it. That's the best way I could describe it. That it kind of just like drones on, and it does not progress really at all. I mean, their vocals get added halfway through, but even then, that's so sudden, and it doesn't really match the song. I don't know, it just doesn't add anything with it. You notice there's a lot of vocal tracks this time around, and I mean, I do like that to an extent, but I think the Antiquity era in particular really over-relies on it. This track's based on the second Delphic hymn, which it is cool they're doing something aside from the Epitaph of Cyclios, so props for that, but I would like to compare it to 6's track. 6's Greece's theme is very ambient, very light, really feels like you're whisked away into sort of like the ideal interpretation of ancient Greece. Not necessarily accurate, but sort of pop culture interpretation. This music might be more accurate, but it also, I don't know, it just does not inspire the same majesty as the 6 one, so I don't know. I don't like this one. This is going in D tier. With the Han theme, I really can't put my finger on why, but I really like this one. It's really unique compared to the rest of the soundtrack, and it has a good mix of traditional Chinese instruments that are actually era-specific. Most of the Chinese instruments you normally think of comes from later Chinese dynasties. It's a good representation, I think. It keeps the same melody the whole way around, but it switches up the instruments, and at least in my experience, that's one of the best ways to keep Civ songs grounded with your melody while not making it repetitive. And I'm a little surprised. According to the Civ wiki at least, this one is not based on anything. It doesn't affect the ranking at all, but just a kind of neat fact. Aside from that, I do really like this one. This is also going up in A. To start off with Kamai's theme, I'd like us all to read this comment that was on the OST Got Me Like video. At first I thought it was a little rude, and then I kind of re-listened to the song and yeah, it's apt. This is the goofy-ass theme. What were they thinking? They were not cooking with this one. No offense to Southeast Asian culture, no offense to Khmer culture, but they did not cook with this one. It's actually really funny. Just listen to it. This is kind of proof not every Antiquity track needs vocals. And I don't know, maybe they did it like that because Ed Beach, the lead historian, has a major in Southeast Asian history, so they tried to make it super accurate, but I don't know. There's zero form to it, and yeah, and the worst part about it, it's goofy. I'll give it that. It's 8 minutes long. It's like, okay, the bit's over by the second minute, you're good, but no, this is the longest track in the entire era. Oh man, I don't get it. Especially considering because Kamai's theme in Civilization 6 is one of my favorites in that entire soundtrack, so I don't know what they were going for here. It's funny, I appreciate the bit, this gets a D. Maria's, on the other hand, I feel does what Grease was going for a lot better with the simpler instrumentation and the greater build-up. It has a lot more variety with the transition and pretty good transitions all around. I'm going to get to one which has bad transitions in a bit. The second half of the song is a really good bop. They do a lot of more aggressive themes, and this is a good way to do it without completely overblowing it. A cool piece of trivia about this track too is that there are 3 different songs present in it, and they each represent one of the ancient religions of ancient India. I believe it is Hinduism, Jainism, and I want to say Sikhism. But yeah, I've actually done some study into Carnatic music, and this is it's a really good interpretation of it. I don't know, it's just really pretty to listen to. I like it a lot, and it's getting into A tier. Starting off with Maya's theme, this song makes me feel like I'm about to be ritualistically chopped up and sacrificed to Quetzalcoatl. 10 out of 10 ambiance with this one. I feel like the more ambient style of orchestration and composing and writing here works a lot better. There's no major melody to this one, which is good. It's just purely getting lost in the vibes of ancient Mayan culture. But when the main melody does kick in, the instrumentation is really on point there. There's some didgeridoos present in this song, which I saw a couple people commenting on. I believe that is referencing the hamta, which is an ancient Mayan horn, sort of like the modern didgeridoo. Although, addressing the bigger point here, this is not what ancient Mayan music sounded like. And I like that. This brings up kind of the main point I wanted to make, which was if recreation songs are better or if songs inspired by the culture is better. A lot of tracks in this soundtrack, especially in this era, have very strict homage to their respective musical traditions. Others instead use them as a base to write more modern music around. A lot of the discourse I've seen online about the soundtrack so far seems to be stemming from this divide. A lot of people just aren't vibing with the more historically accurate music, but at the same time, look at the comments on a lot of the Civ 6 music tracks for the Civs outside of Europe, and you'll see people complaining about Western music elements being used instead of more traditional to the culture. I think there's no right or wrong on how to do this, and this comes down to preference, but I'll call it out when it's done well or poorly. This also depends on a lot how the composer decides to run it. Back to Maya, though. This is a good example of how to use interpretation well in my book. I love the ambience created here a lot. It's driving and it's chilling at the same time. Honestly, this might be a hot take, but I don't care, it's my list. This is my number 1 of the era. I just really love how it sounds. Mississippi's theme is recorded by a group of, I believe, Choctaw singers, which that's always cool. I love it when they do get a traditional arrangements to perform for the Civilization soundtrack, and this one does it a lot more than the previous ones. As you probably noticed, there are a lot of vocal tracks this time around. My theory is, personally, that so many people liked the couple we got in Civ 6, so they decided to prioritize it more. However, I feel like that makes the ones we do get a lot less special. In terms of raw singing alone, this is better than some of the others in the soundtrack later, because it actually has a distinguishable melody, chorus, harmony, harmonization, yeah. But the one thing I don't like about this one is how really, really abrupt the transitions are. I don't know. I feel like they could have done a lot more to ease into the other songs. So, the Mississippi as a culture have very little known about their historical musical tradition. They had license to get a bit more creative with it and did more aside from only having the vocals, but whatever. Personally speaking, I respect the ambition behind it. I'm just not the biggest fan of this one. Okay, Persia's theme is basically the same as the Civilization 6 one. Not that that's a bad thing, though. Civilization 1 is very good, and hey, this one's also very, very good. It's incredibly catchy. I think this is the most catchy of the Ancient Era songs. I think it's a little weird how they return back to the original song at the end, and there's basically no variation in it. I mean, they do the song, and then they do the other one, and then they go back to the first one. That's a little weird for me. Aside from that, I feel pretty much the exact same about Persia as I do Egypt. It's a good representation of the culture and a perfectly passable Antiquity era song, so this gets middle of the pack. And finally, we reach Rome. This one has a bit of the same droning problem and not going anywhere problem that Greece does, but I feel like it is, as a whole, executed a lot better than Greece's theme. It's a fun listen. The instrumentation here is a lot more pleasant than it was in Greece's, and I feel like that goes a long way in making this a fun track. The vocals are integrated here better, too. Sorry I keep going back to Greece's theme, but I don't know. That one just did not do well to me. Going back to Rome, though, the vibes are really on point just for Roman Empire stuff, and hey, that's important to get right, even if this is an original melody. I noticed that a lot of the Civilization 7 themes are a little afraid to commit to having a real melody, and Rome's theme has a bit of that as a symptom, but I still think it's good nonetheless. I will also be placing this into B tier. Overall, Antiquity's a bit of a mixed bag. As a whole, I think there was a lack of direction with the music. Some of the tracks are just very simple melodies with one instrument, while some were very complex in comparison, and that makes the transition between them in-game a bit jarring. I wish they would have picked either lane and stuck to it, but that just goes back to the recreation versus inspiration thing I was talking about earlier. Still, it really does make me wish there were some more ambient tracks in the game. There's only 2 for peace and 2 for war, and like I said, that combined with 5 maximum civs in the Antiquity era, it just makes everything way too repetitive. But whatever. Here's our final tier list as we move on to the Exploration era. The thing that surprises me most about the Abbasid theme right off the bat is I don't think there's a real-world equivalent for this song, where at least the Civ Wiki doesn't list any. And that's kind of surprising. It's not like there's a lack of sources to pull from for their theme song, and it's the only one in this era aside from Shawnee without one. I don't know, that's just kind of interesting. Anyway, about the song itself, it's pretty much what I'd expect from an Arabian theme, and is pretty similar quality-wise both to the 5 and 6 renditions of Arabia. I've always respected the Civ soundtracks for doing Middle Eastern music pretty well, and leading into the microtonality of the music, but unfortunately, that usually gets dropped in the modern era interpretations. But they do keep it around for this one, which is nice. Nothing surprises me about this theme. It's basically what I'd expect. So I will be putting it in B tier. Chola. The one that got away. I think the Indian tracks do a pretty good job of evolving throughout the eras in this game, while still keeping the ethnic roots solid. In particular, I really like the breakdown around halfway through this theme when they move to the alternating rhythm. I can't explain why I like these Indian and Chinese tracks as much as I do. They're really just a fun listen, and I think this is a good evolution upon the Maria track. And I do like the progression. I still think the Ancient Era track is better, though, for Chola, so I will be also putting it at B tier. We need to talk about Hawaii's theme. Hawaii's theme is based on Ua Nana Haeka Ai Kai Aihe Kwai, which is a traditional Malay song that is a song that's essentially a chant. It describes a love scene where the volcano goddess Pele meets Loi Hao on the beach and they fall in love. Typically, this is accompaniment for hula dances. I mean absolutely zero disrespect to Jeff Knorr or any of the very talented musicians involved in this song. Hawaiian culture is beautiful, and without institutions like this, it may have been lost. I mean no disrespect to the people that enjoy this track. Reading the comments on the official upload, it's clear a lot of people really like this one. That being said, this is the worst track in all of Civ 7, in my opinion. And not including ambient tracks from those games, it might be the worst track in all of 5, 6, and 7. I don't want to dog on this song too hard, but what was bro cooking? The problem I have with this theme is that it's hollow without its original context. Hula dances are incredibly impressive, and they take so much coordination to put together. But when you remove the visual elements of the dance, you leave but just the music behind. And in this song in particular, this is two women talking to each other for 4 minutes. It's vaguely in rhythm, but you see the problem here. The form of the song is just the singer calls out a sentence, and then the singer sings that sentence to the melody, ad nauseum, for 4 minutes. All this song ends up being is just listening to two people do a call and response. This is not a civilization theme, this is a summer camp song. This has the same artistic merit as John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith. At least the actual performance of this song usually have the benefit of a chorus, and at least the other Pierce vocal songs in the OST have the decency to have a melody. You might listen to the song and think, okay, Ham, what's the big deal? The big deal is, again, how few songs there are in each age. Say an exploration game takes 4 hours, and this song comes in rotation generously every 30 minutes. Considering it's already just repeating the same thing over and over again, you get pretty dang tired of this one. However, just its sounding bad alone doesn't earn you an F tier. F stands for fumble, and the fumble with Hawaii's theme is that it did not have to be this way. The Civ 5 Polynesia theme is one of my favorites from that game, but it uses Western instruments. Well then, let's compare it to Maori's theme in Civ 6. It's a prime example of how to incorporate vocals alongside other instruments to elevate those vocals, using a guitar to help things along. If only there was a famous Hawaiian guitar. Nope, we can't do that. We have to have literally everything about this Civ represent pre-contact with European society. Okay, limiting ourselves to just words and percussion. Better songs are not hard to find. There's songs like Ahiolau or Ihoi e Aloha Ni Hao, but I really doubt people would have minded throwing a ukulele in there, especially considering what they did to Inca's theme. I'll talk about that later on. But here's an option I think people would have really liked instead. Queen Liliokani, the first regent of Hawaii and a personal pick for civilization, be awesome to add her. Along the fact she was queen, she was also a composer, and she composed the national anthem for Hawaii. In fact, she made 4 of them. And to those saying that national anthems can't be in Civ, they make an exception when the actual leader themselves compose it. So, I think a traditional version of... It really baffles me why the current one is chosen. Even with the current one, there's things you could have done to make it sound better. As it stands, I honestly take off my headphones when this theme comes on. And if that's not the mark of an F tier, I really don't know what is. Okay, cooling off a little after Hawaii's rant. Inca is a very interesting song to talk about. This is 100% composed in the Civilization 6 medieval style. No questions asked. This is interesting because the soundtrack is very focused on cultural accuracy, but this one just uses a bunch of European instruments and is done in a European medieval style. In fact, bringing this further, the song Wiphala was an ancient track for the Inca in 6, and this is probably how it would have sounded in 7 if they continued the culturally accurate style. There's basically no information about this song online, so I don't even know if it's originally an Incan song or like a Spanish colonial song. But what I do know is that this song is awesome. This, in my opinion, is why the inspiration method works a lot better for Civ themes. Take notes, Hawaii. I think it would have been cooler if they did try and stick closer to like the traditional Inca style, because this is just fully irreverent towards it. But you know what? I'd be lying if I said this doesn't work wonders for the theme. This goes into S tier. I find it funny how this is technically a less complicated piece compared to Han's, but Ming's theme really nails the ambiance I want to see in a China track. You cannot make something more Chinese sounding if you tried. I think people might see the slower pace and calmer tone as a bit of a detriment, especially compared to the previous one, but I think it works pretty well contrasting some of the other songs in the Exploration era OST, especially since a lot of them do lean towards that more aggressive side. It's fitting too, because this theme is based off a love story, a famous love story from China. So I think that's cool. I do like this better than the Han theme, and I already like that one quite a bit. I'll admit it probably could have done more to stand alongside the other Exploration era songs, but this is a solid one overall, and I will be putting it into A tier. Mongolia's theme is a bit long for my liking right off the bat. Not torturously long like Khmer, but I still think it could have been like 2 minutes shorter. With that said, I think this was very cool how this one tells a bit of a story. Starts out slow and peaceful, and ends very, very fast and militaristic. I think the comparisons to this is obvious, but the song takes a ethereal tone at the beginning with the throat singing and the traditional non-throat singing. And the build-up at the 3-minute mark is really, really good. Some of the notes the singer hits are, oh wow, it takes you to another plane of existence. I feel like I'm getting gut-punched into another dimension with these. Mongol music in the Civilization series never disappoints, and this one is an instant S tier. I actually don't mind the length, because it's quality all the way through. It tugs at my heartstrings. It's, oh man, this one's great. This one's executed so well, too. I love it. S tier. Thou art listening to 102.3 One More Turn FM. While we're at ripping off comments to the original videos, I think it's super cool how they used the instruments tuned to a lower pitch for this song, since that was the style in the medieval era. And this is probably the most accurate medieval track they've ever done, and I think it works well in this case. It's a good song overall. It is a little repetitive, I will admit, but it's a fun listen. Aside from that, I don't have much else to say. This is one of the most popular tracks from this era, and yeah, it sounds good. It's a fun listen. I will be putting this into B tier. Just like with Mississippi's theme, Shawnee's theme is recorded by an actual Shawnee vocal group. They actually did a couple videos about meeting up with that group. Very cool behind the scenes stuff. And I hope this is not sacrilege to say, but I do wish they would have incorporated a bit more of additional instrumentation to make it fit with the rest of the exploration themes. I think the Cree medieval theme did a great job of giving a song a bit of that medieval pizzazz while still putting the vocal performance front and center. At its best, incorporating other elements into the vocal tracks really just elevates the vocals. It makes them that much better, and I feel like there could have been some techniques to bring this out a bit more instead of literally just doing a vocal group. Compared to Mississippi, though, I like this song a bit better because the vocals are more interesting, and they've got some good polyphony going, and some nice momentum from the percussion. However, this one in particular is very repetitive, and I'm not the biggest fan, so I will be putting this into C tier. Chat, they cooked with this one. They cooked so hard with Songhai's theme. It is so unbelievably catchy. I love the off-beat syncopated melody and the theme itself switching between the different instruments. It's peak. The little swing they do into the note at 12:11, it just sets the tone and sells the whole piece. And follow that out with a breakdown of just the bass drum and a chorus solo. Dude, this song alone makes up for Hawaii's theme. I'd actually heard that a lot of people consider this the worst exploration track. I don't get how. Have you listened to it? This is amazing. If you haven't checked this out, because I've seen this one, it has some of the lower views of all the exploration tracks. Go give this a listen and check out some of the original versions of this as well. Takamba is a really, really good song. I just don't know what else to say. I think we know what caused the Songhai Palace to burst into flames in Civ 5, I'll tell you that much. This is my favorite of the era. Spain's theme, like the Norman themes, feels like the essence of medieval music, extracted down to its purest form. And I think this works really well here, as it does with the Normans. In fact, I do prefer Spain's theme over the Normans. That Latin swing to it gives the piece a lot of momentum, and it feels fun to listen to. This is what I'm looking for in an exploration track. I've studied some similar Romance musical traditions when working on Argentina's theme and Italy's theme. It's not one-to-one, but a lot of similar styles do carry over, and I feel like this is a great way of encapsulating that music. And I can appreciate the instrumentation used here and the techniques and the castanets. Oh, I love castanets. The brass section in the middle also goes a long way in establishing the tone here. And it keeps things from feeling too samey, while also just sounding great. It's a great breakdown. It's a really good track overall. I will be throwing this one into A tier. So, my general thoughts in the exploration era is there's a big lack of consistency, just like with the Antiquity age. And if it's not clear by now, I prefer tracks that reinterpret the music of the culture over doing a direct recreation. I know a lot of people might disagree with that, but it's not like there's no nuance to it. If they would have taken an approach like Civ 6's medieval themes, putting European-style instruments in each one, I would have been disappointed. Not every song needs a hurdy-gurdy. However, I don't think it's unreasonable to want each theme to adhere to a similar level of complexity and quality. This tier list is about how much I enjoy listening to the themes, though, not how culturally accurate they are. Inca's theme is basically a war crime, considering the culture is trying to represent. Even I'll admit that. But that doesn't change the fact I love listening to it. On the other hand, though, Roland Rizzo really was the GOAT in this era. I haven't talked about the composers too much, but between him and Nor, the public perception for Civ 6 was that Nor was the better of the two, with Roland being the lesser. And I think I would agree with that sentiment for the Civilization 6 soundtrack, but with 7, Rizzo really stepped up his game. Like, check out the spread on this tier list. He's still probably going to get flack for not being Nor in the future. Nor is a lot more well-known as a Civilization composer, but Rizzo especially cooked in this era, and I do feel like he deserves recognition for that. Real quick, before we go on, I really want to talk about the Civilization 6 soundtrack eventually, but you see how long this video is already, and I'm only talking about 30 songs. The Civ 6 soundtrack will be 200. So, if you want to see me do the Civilization 6 track, please hit the subscribe button. That will be my 1,000 subscriber special, because that video will probably end up being 4 hours. I mean, if I make a 4-hour video, I want to make sure people are actually going to watch it, you know what I mean? So, if you like this style of content and you like me talking about the Civilization soundtrack, definitely show some support, and hey, hopefully I'll get to talk about it. I have a lot to say. It'll take a miracle for the Civ series to ever beat Hard Times from the last game. And does this one? No, but yeah, I still like it a lot nonetheless. This one just really captures the revolutionary spirit of colonial America to me. That pure distilled Americana, from the melancholy start to the drums coming in at the back. Reminds me of my time in Colonial Williamsburg, honestly. The specific sound they go for is kind of everywhere in patriotic stuff, with the marching drum and the fife later on. I don't know, it is kind of cheesy to me and keeps it from ascending past its predecessor, but nonetheless, this is one I like a lot, so what are you going to do? You're not going to beat Civ 6. Jeff Noor really knocked it out of the park this time, so it doesn't quite get into S, but it's still a very good song. After that, we reached the most recent modern track. Jeff Noor being behind this was not an accident, because Britain's theme is very, very similar to the Civilization V England theme, which is my favorite song from that game. Just go listen to this one. It's beautiful, it's powerful, haunting, inspiring, everything you associate with Britain. Oh, and the beat drop at 220 has been living in my mind rent-free in my head ever since the song came out. I was not familiar with Jerusalem before it became the Britain theme, but oh my god, where has this song been my entire life? Just really perfect encapsulation of Britain, and they could not have chosen a better piece nor a better composer. I don't think I really need to justify this one. This is an instant S tier. So a fun fact, this song is based on the national anthem of Buganda from when it was still an independent kingdom before it was colonized. There's a bunch of traditional music they could have used instead, but I like how they took a song with standard orchestration and made a traditional cover of it. Take note, Hawaii. You could have done this exact same thing. This is how you use traditional music as an inspiration and really have it elevate a piece. Like, the focus on much of this is still the drums and the flutes, but they supplant it with an extra layer of orchestration. You'll see this for other modern tracks, and I absolutely dig that direction. Although it is a little jarring sometimes at going straight from traditional instrumentation to full orchestration, but I'll let that slide because this is a very nice song, even if it is a little repetitive. This gets A tier. France's theme. There's a reason I use this song for the video's thumbnail. Not to wax poetic and not to sound like a broken record, but this one just encapsulates everything about this era of France. The revolutions, the empire, the grandiosity, the arts, and most importantly, the people at the center of it. The two halves of this piece really feel like separate songs, but I don't mind here because the transition's actually well done. The mixing of the folk music and the orchestration is what I live for in the Civilization soundtrack. And this just does it perfectly. This one outlaps Civ 6's France theme by a mile, and I could not be happier. I'm not really going very in-depth with these reviews, just because all of them are really exactly what I want out of the modern era soundtrack, so yeah, this one gets an S. I love this song. I love Civilization themes that tell a bit of a story, and with Japan's, it's pretty apt. The traditional Japanese theme getting westernized and militarized. Very clear analogy to Meiji Japan. My favorite part of this is when, right around the middle though, when they got half the traditional instruments and half the westernized instruments. It reminds me of the great Ace Attorney soundtrack, and that is high praise because I love that game. And I'm surprised it's taken this long for Sakura to be chosen as Japan's theme, but this is such a Bob, good lord in heaven. They did so well with this one. Like, half the songs in the modern age, this is my one complaint, half the songs in the modern age really go for like a militaristic vibe halfway through, and okay, it gets a little samey. But Japan is the one that executes this best out of all of them, so very, very solid piece. This also gets an S tier. Mexico's theme is an orchestral rendition of a traditional mariachi song. That is hilarious. They could have chosen like a more serious song for Mexico, but this represents the spirit of the nation a lot better in my opinion. It's just so fun. It's peak. I will say the instrumentation's all over the place. And I don't know, the tonality of the instruments needs a little work. I don't know, it does kind of rub me the wrong way. but the song being a little all over the place, I think, is intentional. And this one's just a joy to listen to. I'm smiling ear to ear every time it comes up. I will be putting it in B tier. That's just because it's not super technically complex. But man, I love this one nonetheless. In contrast to my usual opinion, this one I feel really could have benefited with some more traditional Indian instruments. Aside from a couple, it's really generic in its instrumentation. And I don't know, this one could have used a lot more Indian inspiration, like the Civilization 6 industrial theme. I feel like that does it really well. Where's the choir in this one? All the other Indian themes had a chorus singing, and it's a part of the original song, too. In fact, I don't think any of the modern tracks have vocals. That is a crime. The vocal and orchestral tracks from 5 and 6 are some of the best in that soundtrack. I don't know. But aside from that, oh my goodness, this is a gorgeous song. The grandiosity, the build-up, everything. It is very, very well composed. This makes up for my other misgivings with the song, and it launches it pretty high in this tier list. To get this out of the way, there's one thing I don't like about Prussia's theme. And it's not the song choice. Look, sorry guys, there's more to the country than just, oh, the one funny military march. I actually think Zemenica Quaidaki, it's a super cool choice for the Prussia theme. Baltic Prussia is always overlooked in favor of Germanic Prussia, and hey, they were the OGs, so I think it's really cool they got My main issue with the song is the repetitiveness of it all. There's one melody that's just looping the entire time. It's like that in the original, but they do not do much to change it aside from just adding percussion and a horn response. They do a lot of military marches in this era, and this is probably the worst version, ironically enough. But what's saving the song from a low tier? It's the intro. The first 2 minutes of this song are S tier. The etherealness, it feels like I'm in a different planet, and that really makes up for the second half. Like, the first half of this song is S tier, and the second more than half is like C tier, so I feel like that balances out to putting Prussia's theme into B tier. And for the final rendition of China's theme, we have another certified bop. This one really doesn't sound like a typical Rizzo track, so I was really surprised to see his name in the credits for this one. I love how grandiose the opening is, but the middle section kinda loses me, especially considering how simple the Erhu section is. I like the bit of the traditional piece being jump scared by the orchestration, but that only works like a maximum of 2 times, and the impact kinda gets lost after this though. At around 3:10 in the piece though, oh, the song really picks up again though. This is a very good way to cap off a solid line of songs for China. I still prefer 6's China theme for better utilizing the Chinese instruments instead of the hard cutting between the two, but this is still a great piece nonetheless, so this is getting B tier for me. One of the most interesting pieces of trivia about this soundtrack is that the first part of this theme is very likely based on Hymn to Red October, which is from a movie? Like, I've looked, I don't think there's anything else it could be. And what's even crazier is that the 2 of the songs in this arrangement represent the USSR, while the version of Russia is the Russian Empire. I don't know, a lot about Russia in Civilization 7 is USSR coded. Weird. My theory is that if they add the USSR to the 4th era, this might become their theme instead. Otherwise, this is a very odd choice of song overall, considering there's other things they could have used. I should probably talk about the music though. I like it, but not significantly more or less than the other modern tracks. It's stock Russian to me, and it doesn't do anything to try and elevate it like the Civ 6 soundtrack did with the vocals. It's pretty middling to me, although it is still a nice listen, so I'll be putting this into B tier, bizarre song choice aside. So this might be a bit of a spoiler for my 1,000 subscriber Civ 6 soundtrack ranking, but I rank the Kamai theme very, very highly, and this one delivers. This is exactly what I would have wanted out of it. This song is peak. I don't know why, but the Southeast Asian music in these games just works so large with orchestra. Like, this is perfect. Like, they found a way to make the marimba work on this one too, even though it uses a totally different tuning system from the rest of the orchestra. That's impressive. There's just so much to love about this song. I love the tone. I love the instruments. I love everything. It's got so much energy. It's got spunk. Oh, I really like the bridge too. Oh my god. I love this song. You know what? This is my number one. I am sorry, Francis theme, but this one is just way too peak. And that's the modern era done. The observant among you might notice that none of these themes ever dip below B tier. I just really love the orchestral tracks in Civilization games, and all of these are good. Like, if you were to tell me I was gonna rank Prussia at the bottom before I went through all these, I would have called you insane, because I love Prussia's theme. But the composers were super good at making these themes punchy and dramatic all around, and the orchestration for each one is really unique as well. Mixing traditional music with a full ensemble, you can't argue with the results. I don't have a lot to say with these in general because they're just so exactly what I wanted out of these. And well, here we are. Here's the overall ranking of the soundtrack. Like I said, there's different criteria for each era, so don't look too hard on this overall tier list. But generally, this is how I feel about most of the soundtrack. Like I said, I'll be talking about the Civ 6 soundtrack at 1,000 subs. I know that's pretty off in the future, but, you know, I'll be talking about over 200 songs, and I want to do it right. You see how long this video ended up when I only have to talk about 30. So if I end up doing this, I want to be sure people are actually going to watch it. But hey, if you made it this far, you're probably interested in that, so drop a sub if you haven't. And with that, thanks for watching. I bid you all adieu. Wait, you want me to talk about the ambient themes? Okay. I like how each era's ambient themes all have peace and war variations, very reminiscent of Civ 5. My favorite from Antiquity is probably Strike the Drums, but they're all pretty good. From the exploration, Der Sitte auf Erden is my favorite, but I don't know, not a big fan of the exploration era ambient themes there. I'll kind of suffer from that droniness problem. Particular unshout out to Shore de Seligen, Geister, for going on way too long. And all the modern era tracks are really, really good on the other hand. I can't choose a favorite. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these were cut main themes. S tiers from them all. They also really remind me of the Interstellar soundtrack. I rewatched that movie recently, and that is high praise. These are probably some of the best ambient tracks in Civilization since maybe 4? Oh, Jesus. And with that, I bid you the main theme. Okay. The main theme is pretty dang good. Christopher Tin outdid himself here, but that's to be expected. Also, a modern composer using 4/4 time, impossible. The lyrics being from a bunch of different pieces of world literature is also super cool. It doesn't beat Baba Yetu, but maybe it beats Sonia de Volare? But just like with 6, the opening cinematic clears the menu version. But I'd also like to give a big shout out to the Game Awards version. The electric guitar is super fun, and we all love Flute Guy. And now, finally, War Declaration tracks? Listen, I'd love to, but they're not on YouTube, so the Bulgarian Nepal themes, those aren't even out. I don't know how you expect me to. Another violence video? Cut the video! Cut outro!